All right. Thanks, Jane. Hey, everybody. Great to see you. Great to be seen. All that good stuff. Let me go share and let me go. Let's see this one. Share. Good. Okay. Um, Anna's AI note taker is requesting to record a meeting. Who's Anna's AI note taker? Do y'all know that one?
No.
I don't know who Anna is.
Oh,
I don't see.
I just disregard it. I don't know who or what it is.
Well, if somebody has AI taking notes, but there's nobody named Anna on here.
Okay, Brenda, disregard it. That's fine. I mean, all this stuff pops up these days with like AI and all these other things. And I mean, if AI wants to take notes and they'll put commas in the right place where I won't. If it's helpful for you guys, I'm cool, but we'll decline it for now. All right. Okay, cool. All right. Hey, everybody doing all right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And Dandy.
Now, John, are you
Yes,
in the
sir.
presentation mode?
Am I in presentation mode? Can you all see the screen?
We see the screen, but you're not in presentation mode. We see all your stuff.
Watch when I put it in presentation mode.
Yes.
There, that's not presentation mode, but okay. We can see it we can see it bigger.
All right, good. We'll go there then, because last time I did it, it cut out me being able to see you guys. And I
Okay.
just love seeing you guys. It's just like such a special thing. Hey, notepads and paper. All right, everybody got notepads and paper out? So a quick little review. And I'm not going to ask you if you got the book. No passcode or link to get on the call. Alan, there is no passcode or link to get on the call. Lord Almighty. Anyhow, I'm getting Texas. I tell you what.
I didn't see that. Okay.
No, here's Anna, the AI note taker, sending me a message again. Unbelievable. Okay. Quick review from last week. So I'm not going to ask, did you get the book? Because I believe every one of you got the book. Okay. So that's what leaders do. So just as we kind of highlight, let's see, how do I got to get used to all this stuff.
Yeah.
Here we go. All right. So we already talked about this. Leadership's ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. We're all in agreement there. All right. Leadership's ability is the lid that determines a person's level of effectiveness. And we showed the two graphs last week. Leadership, and the lid, limited effectiveness, leadership, and the lid with the leadership level growing, effectiveness gets so much bigger. So the lower an individual's ability to lead, the lower the lid on his potential. The higher the individual's ability to lead, the higher the lid on his potential. That's one of the things I loved about being mentored by Paul J. Meyer, being mentored by Miles Monroe. The relationship, and was so blessed, Darcy and I, to have built such a great relationship with Rip Mason. Rip and I are extremely close today, and I'm blessed by his friendship and just the leadership and things I've been able to garner from him. And sometimes I like to think the other way at times too. But what I do like about all these things, and something I learned a long time ago, once I could get ego out of the way and pride out of the way, is the more I could surround myself with people who were better than me, the more we could grow. I always look for people. In other words, I'm going to go back to sports for a minute, okay? And I'm going to switch gears from golf, sorry, Brenda, to maybe something. And ladies, bear with me. I'm just a mere guy here, but let's take basketball as an example, okay? I'm 6'3", and when I went and played in college, if the coach would have tried to make me a center, I'd have been so far outside of my purpose, my talent, my value, it would have been a very, very big mistake. Okay. You don't take a 6'3" individual and put him into a 6'11" to 7 foot position being a center. So it doesn't matter what your level to lead would be. your effectiveness would be absolutely worthless. So all I know is this, is that God has put purpose in each one of us. We are all originals, and we were all purposed to succeed. That's the beauty in the beginning of what our creation is all about. Unfortunately, we come into a world that kind of tells us, and I'm going to get into a question here in a little bit, but we get into a world, where, not everybody wants to see you succeed. Not everybody wants to speak positive to you. Not everybody wants to, talk about a future that's got hope and opportunity in it. So the higher the individual's ability to lead, the higher the lid, on his or her potential. So we've kind of talked about some of that. All right. We've showed this graph last week. You guys have all reviewed this in your chapter this week. All right. These were some of the questions, that we laid out. What is the lid number on my leadership? So put your hand up if you'd like to share maybe an aha moment in here on anything you found that raised your awareness. So let me go back. I'm kind of an amateur on scripture, but as a man thinketh, if I were to ask you to finish that, some of you would say, and as a man thinketh, so is he. That's not what it says. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. There's a lot of people who want success, but are absolutely scared and have a fear of succeeding, just because habits and circumstances have kept them in that so-called rut. What's the difference between a rut and a grave? The rut has no ends to it. All right. So Jane, you raised your hand. I hope you didn't take it down because I said too much, but when you had a chance to do a little evaluation, where our awareness goes, our energy is going to go. All right. I knew it a long time ago that I wasn't a detail guy. I wasn't going to be a CPA. I wasn't going to do an auditing of financials. Okay. That wasn't going to be a life for me. I didn't have a passion or interest in engineering. All right. So I did have a certain awareness at certain levels that I had a purpose. Certainly wasn't in that area, but where your awareness goes, your energy will go. So Jane, talk to us a little bit about what is the lid number on some of your leadership?
Well, I wasn't sure where to go to get this assessment. So I made one up and I sent it out to some of the people. So I took it myself. And you did say rate each one on 1 to 10, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I got a total of 8.4, but there were a couple that, for example, charisma. I gave myself a 6. I don't know. Am I charismatic? It's hard for me to judge me on that. There were ones that I couldn't judge myself. There were some where I immediately could give you an answer, but that was one that kind of threw me. So I'm trying to switch back and forth here looking at them. I had a few 10s. Teachability, definitely I'm a 10. Positive attitude, I know I'm a 10. Generosity, I'm a 10. All right. But most of mine fell and around the 8 level. And yeah, that's where I'm starting.
Okay, so 8.4, I mean, that's very positive. Now you don't have to answer this, but what I would do is I would run a parallel to this, and someone that knows you closely, have them go ahead and rate it, kind of 2, and then see how it kind of matches up. I think it's important we do that. You said you had a 6 on, was it listening?
No, charisma.
Charisma. Okay. All right. Okay. So a 6 on charisma. One of the nice things about that, again, as it goes back to our awareness, is that if I've got a 6 on something, how do I take my charisma per se? And Jane, I'd probably give you a different rating on charisma. Personally, I mean, we've had a chance to know each other for quite a while. I would give you an 8 on charisma just because of how you host, the smile, the conversations. When I see you at conferences, you're not in a corner, kind of hanging out. You're out and about, you're making conversations, you know, your presence is strong. You look people in the eye. I mean, anyhow, I like it. You know, I really do. So you bring a good positive energy. But that's good because then you can kind of say, what, you know, Jane Lehman, what can I do to improve the charisma as I see it? Can I be the first that shakes someone's hands? Can I be the first that smiles and nods and says hello? Can I be the first that says, how are you today? La-di-da-di-da, okay? So that's good. Robert Bagley, kind of share a couple thoughts there.
I did the same as Jane. I rated myself and came up with a 5.4, and a very dear friend rated me and came up with a 6.8. I thought that was interesting, the difference. I put it down to the fact that we tend to judge ourselves more harshly than others judge us. Back to you, John.
Yeah, no, thanks, Robert. You know what? Robert raises a really good point. Some of us, I think, are our own worst critics at times, you know, and that's why I think it's very important to be able to look in a mirror in the morning when you wake up or before you go to bed and just look yourself. There was a time in my life where I just really couldn't look at my eyes in the mirror. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like what I was doing. There was a time in my life, in my early years, where it was survival of the fittest. I was selfish. You know, it didn't really matter what and who I was around. I was going to do what John needed to do. And that's why I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. There became an awareness and there became an awakening, you know, and I praise the Lord that my heart was ready for change. And today I can look in the mirror and I actually like John Hoffman, you know, and I would pray for every single person on this phone that you're able to look in that mirror and say, you know, I, Calvin Stewart, like Calvin Stewart, you know what I mean? And so, Robert, to your point, we can be awfully strong critics on ourselves. And for some of you who are the stronger critic, it's even more important to have someone who's close to you, your loved ones, rate you a little bit, because that can bring the awareness up, you know? And Robert, I've known you a while. I would think 5.4 might be a little bit low, but I don't know where the weighting might be. But I tell you what, the beauty in that is your ability to grow. You know, 1% a week over the next 52 weeks, and your 5.4 becomes a 9.2. And a lot of times, please understand the slight edge for a minute, you know, and this is us guys. We can talk, we love each other, we cry together, we laugh together, we do this whole thing together. But the slight edge is critical. It's the simple daily disciplines. Do not beat yourself up because you think you need to grow 100% in the next 2 months. All right. 1% a week compounded over 52 weeks. The people around you are going to go, oh my gosh, what did you do? I can't lose 20 pounds this week. All right. I've got a goal this year to be back at basically my college playing weight. Okay. And I've got about 17, 18 pounds to go to do it. All right. So I'm not like overly out of it. I just know realistic expectations is better than unrealistic expectations. So if I go a couple pounds a month, 2, 3, 4 pounds a month, compounded over the next 4, 5, 6 months, I'm there. All right. Now, but I got to change some habits. I got to do some things differently than I've done before, you know, to get there. So anyhow, so Robert, what I love, 5.4, your friend rates you to 6.5, whatever you said it was. And the great news is you can take that to a 7, an 8, and a 9 in almost all areas because your awareness is where today? It's that level that brings an energy to it. And because we're committed to these leadership principles, I just can't wait to see in the next 3, 4, 5 months what happens. And when we do this again, I can't wait to hear what your number is. Calvin?
John, excuse me, before you go on, this is Jane. I just for
Yeah.
everybody to know, I put the assessment in the chat. I put a PDF in the chat that they can click open and do it themselves.
Nice. Beautiful. Okay. I'm gonna work with Trish when she comes back in to get some of these things also up where you can print them off. And as I go through the questions tonight, I'm gonna get some of my other questions where I can get them out to you a little bit ahead of time. So I want to save some time for questions tonight too, as we wrap chapter 1 up to go into chapter 2. Calvin?
Yes, John. Quickly, I just wanted to first of all say this is really amazing. The leadership scale, the law of the lid. I could not help but go get the book. I ordered it, but it's not in yet. So I went to the library and checked it out. I read it, read the first chapter. Robert, I want you to know that you think yours was low. Mine was 4.95. So I rounded it up to 5. So now, speaking of charisma, I rated myself at a 4, but I had my wife view or check, rate me, I'll say. She came up with a 10. So, I mean, wow. I mean, that was awesome. So, you're right. We look at ourselves a lot more critically than others, so, and then I thought about it. I'm taking this course called the National Institute of Christian Leadership. We just left church today. It's a secular and Christian lesson or a series seminar, and I mean it's seriously jam packed with leadership principles. And I just so happen to have the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. And I mentioned that to my pastor. He said, "Yeah, John Maxwell." I said, "Yeah, so it's like I'm being put in a funnel that on everywhere I turn, I'm hearing similar information. So I'm fired up. That's all I can tell you. So
Cal-
Robert, we're on the right track. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Well, Calvin, I'm looking forward to you and Robert's numbers together. And Calvin, I've known you for a while just as well. And I would think being, that veteran and having your military background, you probably were a tad bit more critical on yourself than maybe most people are going to be. I definitely wouldn't give you a 4 on charisma. Your smile alone always makes me smile. So, that's worth $1 million right there, my friend. So, but hey, listen, the beautiful thing is again, awareness. And here's also something that I think is amazing, everybody. When we will humble ourselves to want to grow, to be teachable, to accept criticism, not judgment, nobody has a right to judge anybody, my gosh, but to accept, a well-informed critical spirit per se, then we can look at it with all honesty and say, hey, it's the person who buries their head in the sand and says, my commitment to this business is a 10. Well, you haven't put anybody in your pipeline in like 3 months. So how can you say your commitment's at 10? If you're not open to the teachable aspect and the growing aspect, then you're really in for a boatload of hurt. So anyhow, good stuff. Okay. So if you haven't done this, my dear friends, please do so.
You have another
Please.
hand up.
What's that?
You have another hand up.
I do. Where is it? I don't see it.
You can't, she made it a different color, so it's hard to see. Morella.
Oh, because I have a darker hand.
All
That's
right. I see Brenda's, but I don't see, okay, we'll come back to Brenda. Oh, Marilla, go ahead, dear.
Okay, thank you. I did, and thank you for doing this, and thank you for allowing us to all to participate. I love it. I read this book. I think it's the first edition, and I'm rereading it because of you, and I could not be more grateful. So thank you for doing this. So I didn't do it myself. I didn't grade myself. I asked my significant other, and I didn't have the time. I wanted to do it with some of my team members, but I didn't. So he gave me, and it was good that I did it. I didn't remember that you wanted a grade of 1 to 10. So that's how I did it. So he gave me an 8.52, which I think it's generous. So that's my That's what I
Okay.
wanted to share with, and I'll do it. I'll grade I'll do it myself. I think,
Good.
yeah.
Well, I just think it's important because your significant other, that's great, because they're gonna see you, but do it and just see where kind of the numbers come together. Like Calvin said, he gave himself a 4 on Charisma, his wife gave him a 10. Obviously, he's somewhere in between that. I don't believe he's a 4. Honestly, I don't believe any of us are a 10, because if I rate myself as a 10 or I say you're a 10, then there's no room for growth.
Right.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
write this down, everybody. Ray Kroc, founder of McDonald's, since we're on the law of the lid, he said this: when you're green, you're growing, and when you're ripe, you start to rot. So when you're green, you're growing, and when you're ripe, you start to rot. So when I'm 85, 90, 95, whenever before the Lord calls me home, I hope I'm still growing. Okay. Brenda, we'll go with you. Then I got some questions I want to run by everybody. Brenda.
Quickly, I haven't done it yet. Go over security.
Security?
Yeah. I just want to make sure.
When you say go over it, you mean, what does it kind of mean?
Yeah,
Security.
judging myself, security.
Yeah, security with self. Are you comfortable? You know, some people kind of live in a spirit of fear,
Okay.
you know, and they're looking for the boogeyman around every corner. I also, in my eyes, think it has to do with kind of little pessimism versus optimism. You know, so is the glass half empty or is it half full? So that's kind of how I see security a little bit. Anybody else want to add or say, do they see it differently? It's a good question.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. All right. So if you got your pen and papers out, if I hit something here, and Jane, you watch for me, because I've only got 4 or 5 people I can see with my PowerPoint up. If somebody raises their hand and wants to add to this, add to it. If somebody has a question, just stop me. So we got about another 10 minutes. So my first question, and anybody's welcome to answer this, or I'll go to the second question, but if you can, write it down and let's discuss it at some point. How effective will a person be if he increases his leadership, but not his work ethic? How effective will a person be if he increases his leadership, but not his work ethic? Anybody have a thought there? Want to chime in or want to leave it?
Hey,
I'll,
Joe.
Go ahead.
in terms of leading by example, I think that if you're following someone who's showing you that they're effectively managing themselves and that they're going to work harder than anybody else on that team, that's where you get people's attention.
Okay. So how effective will a person be if he or she increases leadership, but not his work ethic? So what if you, Patty, commit to this 21 irrefutable laws and you improve every one of these areas per se on your, from a leadership perspective, but you do nothing else with your activity?
Right.
What will that do with your effectiveness?
It won't raise it at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the things that I have seen over the years is, you know, in this industry we're part of, we talk about personal development. Right now, we're committed to personal development from a leadership perspective, right? So we're all committed to it. It's like I'll watch somebody, let me pick on Calvin for a second again, because I can just see him. So Calvin says, John, I'm going to see Tony Robbins this weekend. I'm going to do the fire walk. I'm like, great, Tony. And Calvin spends $500 to do the weekend event with Tony Robbins. Friday night, he's just jacked out of his mind. Saturday, he's jacked out of his mind. Sunday, he's excited. Guess what? Tony's not around Monday morning. So Monday morning hits. And what typically happens when Monday morning hits, or Tuesday morning, or Wednesday morning? You know, it's like what was the old Jim Rohn saying, I'm just waiting for someone to motivate me. Well, what if they never show up?
Got to be a
Right?
self-starter.
Right. And that's why I love Darcy's training, self-disciplined, self-functional, self-motivated, and I'm forgetting the fourth one right now. There's four of them. But anyhow, you and I become independent when the person we've worked with becomes self-functional, self-motivated, self-disciplined. And there's one more, and I'll figure it out. Okay. So we can increase our leadership, but if we don't do something with our work ethic, then the whole effectiveness leadership graph just continues to shrink. Make sense? All right. Good stuff. Number 2, do you agree with the author's assessment that increasing your leadership is one of the best ways to increase your level of effectiveness? Do you agree with that? Would anybody like to explain why they agree with it?
Well, after reading the chapter, and it talked about Ray Kroc, actually, he came in on the end of the success model of the McDonald brothers, Dick and Maurice McDonald.
Yep.
So they had been, in the business for what, 15 years or so before they sold out to Ray. So it was the leadership ability that made McDonald's thrive, not the fact that, it was a good business when they had it, but they didn't have the lid was capped, and they weren't able to raise the effectiveness of the business. And that's how I
Yep.
saw that. Mm-hmm.
So Calvin, let's bring that kind of down to the basics with you right now. And I'm not saying this is your true number, but let's just take your 4.4 on your lid number on leadership. And we move that lid up to a 7.5. Does that improve the effectiveness graph of what you're doing out in the marketplace?
I would say to the extent that the dedication is there, well, I think it's a reciprocal effect. In other words, if I already had a 5 under dedication, I'm considering that dedication being my effectiveness, not effectiveness, but my work ethic. And then my leadership goes up 4 points or 5 points. It's going to give my shaded area is going to increase, but it's not going to expand. I'm just saying it's not going to be more effective. It'll just be effective in a different range, if you will, or it will look different, but it won't be.
Okay. All right. So wait. So stay with me a second. So I'm going to break it down. So you're at a 4.4. Let's just say you're right now, you're saying you're at a 4.4 on average.
Okay.
Okay. So your commitment goes up to a 7.0.
Okay.
Your focus goes up to a 7.0. Your initiative goes up to a 7.0.
Okay.
Listening goes up to a 7.0.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Your relationships go up to a 7.0. Are you telling me that on that effectiveness graph that there's not going to be a change in how big a business you're creating in Legal Shield and the rest of your life?
Well, yes, it will definitely. I see
Absolutely.
it now. I see it.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, if you grow, you can't grow those things and be sitting on your duff watching as my world turns, or whatever the make my stomach turn soap operas out there today. I don't know. It's like, right?
Right.
There it is. You're right there. It is. You
Mhm.
can't help but grow your effectiveness area if, in essence, you're growing self-discipline.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a perfect example. Self-discipline. You're a brand new 1099 entrepreneur. You haven't played golf with your buddies for like 3 years because you got a job. Your buddies call and say, hey, you want to go play 18 holes down at the local course? You're like, dude, it's 3 p.m. I got to work. I got a job. Now you're a 1099 Legal Shield entrepreneur. It's Monday at 3 o'clock and your buddies call and you just started your business. Hey, you want to go play golf? You're like, yeah, let's go. That's because your self-discipline is not where it should be. You're like, no, I'm going to grow this business. I'm not going to play golf for 2 to 3 years. And then I'm going to be able to build my own golf course because my discipline and my commitment is to my business now. So Calvin, I would say that you grow your leadership, you grow the overall effectiveness of everything you're going to do. Calvin, you grow your leadership. You're an executive director in July. Okay. All right.
I receive it. I believe it.
All right. I'm just sticking with the truth of what Max was talking about. I'm not making it up. So, all right. Anybody else on that one? Okay, here's one for you guys. What criteria can be used to describe a person's leadership ability? What are some clear signs of leadership strengths and weaknesses? I'll read it one more time. What criteria can be used to determine a person's leadership ability? What are some clear signs of leadership strengths and weaknesses? Thoughts? We can come back. I know I'm putting it on you for the first time.
John, for me, one of the first things of a leader is communication, good communication. That can make or break everything right there.
So, Jane, the absence of good leadership and the weakness would be poor communication.
Yes.
All right. Good.
John,
That's
I think,
why- Brenda, 1 second there.
I
That's
think
why
you got, oh, okay.
Hold on, Brenda, just a second. So, Jane, that's one of the things I think is important with the startup phase with a new associate. If you're taking notes, listen to understand, don't listen to respond. When you listen to understand and you ask questions, you can then wrap the fast start training, you can wrap the membership, you can wrap the opportunity, you can wrap the comp plan around whoever it is you're talking to. Because questions are always a window to a person's soul. So I like it, Jane. That's awesome. Brenda, go ahead.
John, I just think you just have to walk your talk. You have your team and you can, tell them, da 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 da. But unless you're doing it and they have to see that you're doing it, then they're not going to do it.
Yep. Brenda, how many students have you had where they've maybe been coached and mentored by you, and maybe it's a lesson every 2 weeks? Some students will go and practice what you taught them, and by hitting balls. Okay, if I'm working on my driver and my long game, and I take what you taught me, and 2 weeks later I come back after spending time, on the practice range hitting balls, Brenda's going to see an improvement because I committed to the thing she taught me. Versus, Brenda, what would it look like if I didn't do anything and I waited 2 weeks to see you again?
Oh, right. And I tell a student that they don't have to tell me if they practice or not, because I can tell with the first swing at the start of the lesson.
Yeah. And then Brenda's probably going to have a conversation and say, John, why do you keep getting lessons when you're not willing to practice what it is I'm teaching you? That's when I say to the associate that I just sponsored, it's like, hey, we had the conversation, and in the last 2 weeks, you haven't put anybody in your pipeline. You told me you wanted financial independence. You told me you wanted to fire your boss. You told me you're sick and tired of living paycheck to paycheck. Were you pulling my leg, or were you serious? Because if you were serious, you'd fill your pipeline. All right. Now I would have to find out maybe what the barriers were to them filling their pipeline, because maybe I didn't communicate properly on how to understand recruiting through your warm market. So anyhow, okay, good stuff.
Hey, John,
John,
Go ahead. Yep.
Marilla's, she has her hand up.
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Marilla. I'm having a hard time seeing yours. Marilla, go ahead.
That's okay. No, I just wanted to say that integrity to me is doing the same thing when no one's looking, behaving with ethically. It makes it's a strength. It makes a leader. It's a
But-
big part of being a leader, showing leadership,
So you're talking character, you're talking integrity.
integrity. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, listen, when you know your character is going to show yourself all day long, you know, you can tell people you're this, but when you come to looking in the mirror, who are you really? You know, I'm going to go into questions to leave you all with here in just a second. Oh, I see Teresa. Hi, Teresa. Teresa, go ahead.
So I think it's important. A leader says, let's do this, not you go do that. So a leader is in the trenches. Of course, in our business, we're in the trenches with those that want to be in the trenches, who want to excel, who want to move the needle for their business. But obviously, you're going to have people who don't, who are not ready to do that. A leader doesn't just throw them by the wayside, but checks in periodically and says, listen, when you're ready, I'm here. But
Yeah.
a leader's not going, I'm not going to chase after you, but I'll let you know that when you are ready, I am here for you. So I'm going to say, let's try this. Let's do this. Let's put this together. Not you go do it.
Yep. Very good. To Teresa's point, it's all about we, not me. There's a saying we've had over the last 35 years, you work with the best, you love the rest. I'll always tell people, look, I love you. I'm here for you, but I'm not going to keep showing up at the gym and you leaving me hanging. You know, you've told me you wanted a workout partner. I've been there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You haven't been there all week. All right, I'm going to find a new workout partner, but I'll always be here for you. But I'm not, to Teresa's point, I'm not going to chase you down. It's a chess game. I can't move unless you move. I will run as fast as you want to run, but I can't carry you. I can't want this more than you. I do want it for you. I will support the strengths and interests you have. I will rally around all of that, but you've got to step up to the plate, my friend, and swing the bat. So, yeah.
That's good, John. 'Cause one of the things I do is I practice checkerboard management.
There
You
you go.
make a move, I'll make a move. You don't make a move, I won't make a move. I will never outrun your own efforts for you.
Yep. Good. Very good. Jane, you, and then I got a couple questions I'm going to give you all for next week. Jane,
Okay,
go
just
ahead.
real quick, you said it really clearly. I think a lot of us do this, is that we want it more for the new prospect than they want it for themselves. That spoke to me, like you just hit me between the eyes. Sometimes I want it more for them than they do. And that's a big one to work on.
Think about it from this perspective. And for some of you, maybe you have children, maybe you don't, but think about your kids. What would your kids' future look like if you wanted it more for them than they did themselves? I know people whose children are still living at home in their 30s. Now, if you have a child like that, I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. I'm just saying that when you raise expectations, people will rise to the occasion. When you speak to the value that's in somebody, they will rise to it. You know, we don't accept mediocrity. We don't compromise. We don't pat people on the back for doing the wrong things. We lift them up and say, hey, there's more. There's more to you. There's more to this opportunity. And together we can go to the top. So I'm going to leave you a couple things. So up to now, so here's just a question. Up to now, how dedicated have you been to developing yourself as a leader? Just up to now, okay? How dedicated have you been to developing yourself as a leader? How will you increase that dedication? I hope one of the first things you all write down is this leadership series with John Maxwell. So we're going to increase our dedication with this series for sure. I'm going to ask you to not make this a once a week thing. Find 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 minutes in the morning with your cup of coffee or whatever you do. Get up a little bit earlier. Start your day a half an hour earlier and commit to the chapter, commit to reflection, and commit to thinking through some goals and the values you want to put behind those goals. It doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be anything like that. Okay. Just take personal inventory and say, I'm going to do this, this, and this. All right. I'm going skiing in Breckenridge. It's our family vacation every year in March. Every year I have a place out there for the family and we ski. Well, look, I'm 65 years old. I still want to ski. I still want to do the things I did when I was younger, and I plan on doing that for a long time. But I'm also smart enough to know that if I don't start training for the peak now, I'm going to have issues when I'm out there trying to keep up with everybody, or I might not ski at that altitude. What do? I go on YouTube and I seek out the best skiing routines and workout routines that I can. So today's my day to start for the next 2 months in the gym, working on the things that professional skiers work on before they hit the slopes. All right. So, I'm dedicated, and that's not the only thing I'm working on. All right. I've got goals in Legal Shield. I've got goals with the team. I've got goals with ringers. I got a call with Juwan Buford tomorrow morning. He wants to be $100,000 ringer, and he wants me to help him map out, that plan this year to be $100,000 ringer. I'm committed to it because I know he's committed to making the run. All right. Couple last things. When did you first see yourself as a leader? Consider that and write it down. Some of you might have a hard time answering that. I know I have some people I've worked with that are Millionaire Club members on our team, and the very word success and leadership scared them. They were fearful of it. They had a block. They had a barrier. We were able to overcome it. What are some of the greatest challenges you faced as a leader? Man, this is a fun one, guys. What are some of the greatest challenges you've faced as a leader? The beautiful thing about that is you embrace it and you understand that the greatest learning opportunities come from experiences, not where we had success, but where we got knocked on our butt. What I love about you guys is you got knocked on your butt. I got knocked on my butt probably more than all of you, but guess what we have in common? We all got up. We looked at, experience in the face and said, not today, not again. Okay. What has contributed to your growth as a leader? Write down a couple of things. What has contributed to your growth as a leader? What are you currently doing to grow as a leader? And that kind of goes with what we talked about a minute ago. And then I'm going to leave you with this, and let's follow up with this kind of as we open next week before we go into the law of influence. What is the best piece of advice that you would have for someone who aspires to be an effective leader? Okay. Understand, I think Teresa might have said it earlier, in order to talk the talk, you better walk the walk. So don't be chiming in with all these great leadership aspects or attributes, if you're not quite ready for that. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Okay. That's not to be harsh. And there's nobody on this phone that I would ever consider a false prophet. But we've seen the false prophets over the years, especially in this industry, wanting to give advice, wanting you to buy their books, wanting you to buy their material, and they ain't done jack squat. That's Tennessee lingo, by the way, people. So what is the best piece of advice that you would have for someone who aspires to be an effective leader? And the great thing is your story can be truly inspirational to somebody who's running a parallel to maybe where you're at. I was framing houses for $7 an hour. I was bartending at night, working till 2 a.m, trying to create any cash flow I could before I got started in this industry to just not lose a company that I started. All right. And then I got introduced to the direct selling industry. I still bartended, I still framed houses, but I was hoping that this business would help me eliminate all those because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. You know, so there were things that I needed to change in order to get better, you know, and I know y'all have done the same thing. So, lastly, here's next week. All right. So the law of influence, the true measure of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Enjoy the chapter. Get your highlighter out, highlight it, make notes, write all over that book, jot down questions. And we'll engage next week on the law of influence. Any closing comments? Any thoughts from anybody?
John, can you please send the questions that you asked? Can you send those questions out to everyone? Some
You know
people have
what?
asked
I'm
me.
gonna put a sticky on this. I'll have Trish send that out tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of hit that a little bit fast. Somebody else was saying something?
I was just gonna ask you, John, what was the second question? I didn't get that written down, sorry.
The second most recent question, because I know I had some in the
Yes,
beginning.
sir.
I think it's
Yes,
this one.
sir.
What are some of the greatest challenges you faced as a leader?
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Someone else asked what the first question was. That's why I thought I'd have you send them.
First question, when did you first see yourself as a leader? If you guys remember in a lot of my trainings, I always ask the audience, will you give me permission to coach? They raise their hand, they say yes. I ask them, should a coach be accountable to the team? Yes. Should a team be accountable to the coach? Yes. The very next thing I typically say is I want everybody to take their notes today, not as a student, but as a teacher, as a leader, because the notes you take, if you understand this business, you're going to immediately take out to your team. Does that make sense? You can be an associate and take a leadership role in this business. All right. You're not going to teach at the platinum level, but you sure can teach the associate level. Right?
Expecting to have kids together, they biological kids together.
That might have been Karen. I don't know if she was asking a question or not. All right. Anybody else on questions or anything? Everybody feel pretty good? Are we good?
Yes,
think
sir,
we're ready.
dandy.
Thank you.
I'm just going back to this. All right, guys. Where do we leave it here? Good. All right. I stopped my screen share. All right. Dandy. All right. Well, we're going to leave on Brenda's dandy comment and love you guys. And law of the influence next week.
Thank
Rock
you.
and roll.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
John.
Thank you, John.
See y'all later.
So very much.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy. Thanks, John.
See you guys. Okay. Bye-bye.